Oh man, we live. We live on it.
Got a little chuckle. Okay, we ready?
Yeah, man. Let's get it. Let's get to it, Pop.
The Civil War in America continues, but is there a road back to civility? You're on the road. Thank you for joining us once again on the road for reviews, opinions, and discussions. I'm Bruce.
I'm Rasan, and we want to hear from you guys. So feel free to hit us up. All of our links are down below. So we're on the web at joinusontheroad.com, and we're also on Twitter and Instagram at The Road Podcast. So again, let's jump into it. We got a Civil War Part 2.
Civil War Part 2. You know, it's interesting. As bad as things seem right now, let's face the facts. It's getting worse, and it's getting worse because there's so much rhetoric being thrown around out there nowadays. There are so many people pushing their agenda, trying to get people to join their side. The violence is truly increasing. Some of the rhetoric is actually really dangerous. I do believe a Pandora's box has been opened. But is it possible to close that box? I think it is, but it's going to take us as people learning how to come together. I think one of the problems is we need to be a little more concerned about the information that we're getting. I know Rasan had mentioned on our last show about vetting the information you're getting. We're being bombarded by so much from the left, from the right, from the media. We're just being hit with all of this information, and all of it is, and most of it, for the most part, is extremely negative. But how much of this information are you really checking out? How much are you really putting to the fact test to see if the information you're getting is actually factual, or if it's just information given to you in order to manipulate you onto taking a particular stance? Now, I realize that one of the big issues right now that I think is bringing a lot of people to this highly inflamed stance of volatility and violence is immigration. But how much of the information that we're getting on the topic of immigration is actually factual, and how much of the information is just being fed to us for a purpose? I mean, let's face the facts. We know that, be honest, the government is good at manipulating the people. We know that politicians are masters at speaking, and they have the ability and the power to actually persuade people to believe what they're saying is true. If you hear something enough from enough sources, you'll begin to believe this actually factual rather than questioning the validity of it. And I think that's what's happening to us right now. We're being bombarded by so much negativity that folks are buying into it and believing that it's true without actually stopping to check out, to find out what is true and what is not true.
And I think that that word that you just used a few times, truth. That's an interesting word. I think back to I remember when I was in high school, and a teacher, I think it might have been an English teacher, did a lecture, and during a lecture he asked a very simple question, or at least it seemed like a simple question at the time, which is what is the truth? Define the truth. He posed that to the class, and everybody had their own version of what they believed the truth was. And some people said, it's it's what is real. Some people said, it's what everybody believes. So, there was so many different answers. But the interesting thing is that we spent all class just trying to answer this one question. And, we're like 11th graders, so, we're teenagers. But it was, that is one of the lessons that, one of the classes that stuck with me. And I think back to that quite frequently, that question about what is truth, because I think that when people are able to, like you said, when people are able to have that power of persuasion over, large amounts of people, you can get people to believe your version of the truth, or what you want to purport as the truth. And I think that there's a lot of power in that, and we're seeing the results of people being convinced of whatever you want to call it, these kind of false truths, or whatever you want to call it. But when you look in the mainstream media and or social media, really, it's even more abundant on there, and you see like these news articles that are very skewed, and they take the facts and they twist them. Sometimes it's very overt. Sometimes they just slightly skew things and slap a headline on there, and that headline elicits a response. And then the person that read that article or read that headline maybe didn't read the full article, or maybe read the article and didn't vet the source of the article, and now they're running with this version of their truth, and they're spreading it out to other people, and before you know it, you have a bunch of people believing something that's for lack of a better term, not true. And so I think that that word truth is a very interesting, it's a very tricky word, and in the hands of certain individuals, it can be very powerful, and it can be used for good or bad, or anywhere in between. And we're seeing a lot of that nowadays. We're seeing a lot of that nowadays, man.
That's very true. And the thing about it is this: is how can we come to the point where we can say whether or not something has a certain level of truth to it? The only way you can is by fact checking. Mm-hmm. You have to go back and research to find out what the facts are involving a particular issue. What are the actual facts that surround a lot of these issues that have people so inflamed? They're hearing someone who, let's face the facts, they have a bias, because it comes down to what they want you to believe, their perception of the so-called truth that they present, but they're presenting this to you in order to persuade you to join their side. I don't believe that people really care. A lot of the politicians, that is, and I'm not saying all, because you never say all about anyone, about any group of people, or any politicians for that matter. But I believe there's a large percentage of politicians, their whole purpose of what they're doing is to take something, twist it, mm-hmm. skew it, mm-hmm. and throw it out there with their take on it.
Absolutely.
Not even based on facts, but they'll take the facts and they'll simply present a certain part of it, mm-hmm. and they'll twist it a little bit and throw it out there to you. How do you get people to believe something? If you just put in just a dash of fact and let everything else be skewed, people will have a tendency to take that little bit of fact and then run with it, believing that everything that was said to them is the truth. Mm-hmm. And this is what the problem is right now. Yeah. Is people don't want to listen. They don't want to look beyond the words that they're hearing. Mm-hmm. I remember Marvin Gaye. Yeah. I got to tell you, Marvin Gaye is I think one of the all-time great R&B artists, singers, composers, musician, all-around guy. But I remember a song that he came out with, and part of the song was, and you know the name of the song, I heard it through the grapevine. He said, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear.
That's it.
Other words, when you're hearing something, especially coming from the mainstream media, especially coming from politicians, mm-hmm. you have to come there with the viewpoint of maybe some of what they're saying is true and maybe it isn't.
Absolutely.
And so it should move you to want to investigate, mm-hmm. or to vet, or to research what the actual facts in the situation are. Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes down to immigration, the one thing that we all know is that it's the U.S. Congress, that legislative branch of our government, that actually develops, mm-hmm. makes laws, and passes legislations, which then goes on to the president, whoever it may be at that time, and at this time is President Trump, to the president's desk to be signed. So it truly is the Congress' job to come up with a law, a legislation that can solve the problem of immigration. Now, immigration has been something that we've been dealing with for a long time.
Decades now. I mean, there's been immigration laws on the books, honestly, for centuries. So this is nothing new. You know, the whole idea of immigration law and immigration reform, I mean, it is nothing new.
We have to look at the problem that we're having here. So the problem with this whole situation of immigration does wind up being the laws themselves, and the laws that, well, we say that maybe they do need to be changed. But the problem of it is that the Congress is the only one that has the power. That's the only legislative branch of the government that has the power to change the law. Look, I realize that we're into this identity politics nowadays, and I think that's part of the problem.
It's a big part of the problem.
Because people are identifying with a party. It doesn't matter whether or not what that party is espousing is true or factual, or even if it even makes sense. They only care about the fact that if their party says it, then it must be right, it must be good, it must be pure, and because I'm a member of this party, then I'm on the side of right. But that's not necessarily the truth.
And it's not a healthy way to view things either. I mean, it's going to really lead to, I mean, that when you start going down that path, it only gets worse. So, I mean, you have identity politics, and, you know, you have this kind of like this tribal mentality, you know, and there's the term toxic tribalism that's been used to describe the mindsets of people when they get into these camps, you know, and they're very emotionally invested into, you know, the cause for this on this side, and then you have this other side who's very emotionally invested, and they identify so deeply, and they're so deeply entrenched into their sides, and now neither one of those sides will ever come back together. And I mean, it's toxic for a reason, because it literally will erode away at the fabric of, you know, that society if it sustains in that way.
Exactly, and division.
Absolutely,
it's what it causes. And so the truth of the matter is, we ask the question, you know, how can we, you know, move beyond this civil war that we're in? How can we bring this to an end? Well, it's up to the individuals, you know, because we ourselves are the one that take a stand because of what a politician has said, what the news media is giving us, and we take this particular stand, and we choose to stand flat-footed and to believe what they're saying is the gospel. I gotta tell you the truth. There's a politician out there that I'm going to listen to what they have to say and believe it is the gospel, because it isn't. There's not a news media out there today that I'm going to sit down and watch or listen to and say to myself, the news that they've given is truly the gospel.
That's the only source of news that I'm ever going to trust, and everything
because they're the only ones with the truth. They have the truth, and nothing but the truth. But the fact of the matter is we have to be very careful about the things that we consider to be truthful. Because, be honest with you, a lot of these news media outlets, they have a bias.
They absolutely do.
And and their reporting is skewed either to the left or to the right based on their bias towards a particular political party or political belief or ideology. And it's skewed in that direction. So we have to sort of come out of the idea of being caught up into identity politics and maybe start identifying ourselves as just Americans. Americans. Now, we're not this program isn't about politics.
No.
I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent. It doesn't matter as far as we're concerned, because we're not talking politics. We're trying to...
This is beyond the lines of Democrat versus Republican.
It is.
Because, I mean, no matter what side of the line, the party line you fall on, what's going on in this country is going to affect all of us. And if part of what's causing things to go south is this, you know, this division, then, I mean, we'd be foolish to not talk about it and try to see what can be done to change things.
I mean, we have to. I mean, because right now we are a nation at war. We're in the midst of a civil war. And who wants to go back to that type of atmosphere again? And that's where we are right now. We have to find a way that we can come together, and maybe there can be a healing in this nation. Kind of like Dr. Martin Luther King said when he said that we could all sit together at the table, of brotherly and sisterly love, and then we can begin to talk, and we can begin to share our ideas and figure out solutions to the problems in this nation. This nation has a lot of big problems, people. A lot of big problems. And immigration is nothing to just sneer at, because it is a problem that we have in America, without a doubt. And it needs to have an answer. It needs to be resolved. There needs to be something done about it. But we have to recognize the fact that if we get so caught up into this one issue until we're divided and at war, we're never going to be able to come together in unity at the table of unity and deal with the other issues that affect our country and our lives as American citizens. So somewhere along the line, there has to be a coming together for us as a people.
Absolutely, man.
What's the expression from the Bible? A house divided against itself cannot stand.
And that's where we are right now. That's exactly where we are. So we have to, this is part of, to me, this is part of the solution. Talking about it, figuring out, how we can take meaningful and purposeful action from where we are in our lives. That to me is kind of like what I think is part of the solution, is trying to just figure out, all right, everybody doesn't have a massive political platform or some sort of huge social media following that you're going to be able to go out there and get a whole bunch of people to kind of follow behind you and believe what you're saying. But if you really want to make a difference, I mean, there's things that you can do just from where you are in your life. I mean, there's you have a circle of influence. You have, there's a community that you're a part of, or that you can become a part of and kind of inject yourself into and begin making a difference there. Just having a mature and a reasonable conversation with somebody who you don't necessarily agree with on the issues is another thing that, to me, can begin to start kind of mending things, at least on a grassroots type level. I mean, and if we all kind of do that, I know it's kind of a pie in the sky mentality, but I mean, if we all kind of just went out of our way just a little bit to do things like that, I think it would go a long way towards, changing the climate and changing the picture when it comes down to the place that this country is in at this point in time.
And unless we can come to this point where we can come together and we can stop this fighting among our... I know people who were good friends, and because one was a Democrat and one was a Republican, these are lifelong friends. And over politics, their friendships were destroyed. And I know families
won't talk to each other,
that won't talk to one another because of the political stand. One's a Democrat, one's Republican, one's a liberal, one's a conservative, however you want to put it, and they are now at odds with one another. Some of these folks won't even speak to one another.
Kind of reminds you of what was that, the North versus the South,
Oh man,
pitting brother against brother,
and that's what happened.
People taking different sides.
Families were divided. In the Civil War, families were divided. Brother against brother, sister against. I mean,
that Mason-Dixon line wasn't
exactly.
No joke, man. So you gotta pay attention to this stuff. And I mean, obviously, we're not saying that it's to the point where there's going to be battlefields in the middle of the street and war.
Well, I don't know sometimes because right now the way things are going, as far as the attitudes of people are concerned, it seems like it's sort of at times creeping in that direction, which I hope to God it doesn't.
Yeah, me too. I really hope it doesn't get to that point.
And we've already seen violence.
But we have seen violence.
In America,
people
over
being
politics.
Physically accosted in the streets. Trying to have dinner and stuff like that.
How about being shot?
Being shot. Yeah,
Republicans practicing baseball.
Yeah, the baseball game.
Guy who was a Democrat comes out, and and I want you to understand this. We're not saying all Democrats, and we're not saying all Republicans.
No, this is
by no means, because look, there's no way in the world anybody should clump any group of people all in one boat and say this is what I mean. Look,
that would just be naive. And
ain't that what they did to black folks?
That's exactly,
once upon a time, all black people got put on one boat and then pushed off into a river somewhere. But the fact of the matter is, I don't believe we should ever clump a group of people based on their race, their religion, or their political ideology into one boat. If you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, I'm not going to say all Democrats are this. There's some Democrats out there that really care.
Yeah,
they really care about the country. They care about the issues that face this nation. There are Democrats out there who believe that all of this infighting amongst Americans needs to stop, and they are against it. I really would like to see more Democrats speak out against this.
Yeah,
just like I believe that there are Republicans out there that really want to come together and really want to try to work these issues out. So I think there's good and there's bad in all things, including people in positions, whatever the case may be. So we will never ever say all you Democrats or all you Republicans. But what we're saying is that for those who are in either party, who have a sense of unity, who feel a disdain for the direction this country is going in, as far as division among American citizens and this almost civil war-like mentality, I believe there are many who are against it. And I just would like to see maybe more speak up against this on both sides, and maybe let Hollywood sort of chill out a little bit instead of throwing more gasoline on the flame. People, we've got to come together.
Yeah, we got to figure out a better way to do this thing. We got to figure out a better way.
We do.
Yeah, unity. I mean, that's it, man. That's it. There has to be some sort of unification, that happens here, because we can't continue on this divided path. I don't think it's sustainable.
It's not.
I really don't think it's sustainable. I think that there's going to come a time when, as a nation, we're going to have to pay the piper when it comes down to this whole thing.
There's no doubt about it.
If something doesn't change, and so we'll see. We'll see how this thing plays out.
Hey, look, we can hope.
Yeah,
I mean, we can. Look,
we can hope, and we can also.
We're not giving up hope.
Absolutely, and we can also take meaningful and purposeful action from where we are right now.
And that's each individual.
All of us. Each
individual. Look, we build these walls ourselves. We can take them down brick by brick, because when you build those walls as operation, you can no longer see who's on the other side, and in that case, whoever is on the other side, you view them as an enemy, as a combatant. If we can begin to take that wall down brick by brick, if you look over the other side, you'll see that it's not an enemy combatant, it's another fellow American citizen.
There you go.
And all we want to do is come together and work out the issues of this country so that together we can make a better future for our children, for our grandchildren, and on down the line. America is a great nation. It's got its problems, there's no doubt about it. But by the same token, there's a greatness in this country.
Yeah.
But right now, unless we come together, you do the math.
There you go. That's it.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Think about it, America.
I agree.
Give some thought to it.
Food for thought.
Stop listening to the politicians spew all that rhetoric. Stop. Vet the information. Look it up. Find out what the truth is for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, the
That's
Bible
the
says you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free.
Amen.
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 And amen. Be free, America.
Be free. So listen, hit us up. Let us know what you think about what we talked about today. We want to hear from you guys. So again, you can hit us on the website at joinusontheroad.com, on Twitter and Instagram at The Road Podcast. We're also streaming audio now. So we are on Stitcher. We are coming soon to Google Play and iTunes. We're on a couple other, I think we're on Pocket Casts as well.
Yes, we are.
We're also on Anchor.fm. So you can stream us audio only on all of those sources, or you can catch the video on the website or on YouTube.
Please do that. And tell us what you think about the show. If you have anything you'd like for us to talk about, or any comments, please shoot them to us. We love to read some of the comments that you have,
Definitely.
whatever they may be.
Definitely.
On our show.
Yeah.
And maybe give us ideas for things that you want to hear about.
If you guys have anything you want to hear us talk about, feel free to drop a line, hit us online, drop us a message. And, we read all that stuff. We might not message back immediately, but we read all that stuff. And we promise if you shoot us a message, we'll get back to you.
And for all those who have hit us up, who have dropped us a line, I want to say thank you very much.
Yeah, that was big. The support from the first episode was big.
There's no doubt about it.
So thank you, everybody who
Thumbs
watched.
up to you, America.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
So we're gonna keep bringing y'all more content and more and more interesting topics. But I think that about does it for this episode of The Road.
In the meantime, we'll see you next time on The Road.
Peace.
Peace.